And now, when you thought it was safe to finally airdrop your photographs, no, there is evil in the electronic airwaves. We're looking at Christopher Landon's Drop, the story of a single mother who finally gets herself back out there and goes on a date, but there are malicious airdrops being sent to her phone, detailing terrible tasks that she must complete in order for her son to survive a terrible ordeal. It is a whodunit. It is filmed in one location. It's set in Chicago, but it's filmed in Ireland. This film is incredibly stupid, but some may say incredibly fun. So, Reuben, I'm going to pass it off to you because I am sensing a vibe from you that you are in the enjoyment camp of this film.
Yeah, I thought this was really, really entertaining. I mean, I'm such a whodunit fan, and for me, this was just a sort of delicious little cocktail for me to sip on. It's got all of the elements that you would expect. Dodgy waiters, slightly sinister bar staff, a creepy man sat over there in the corner, and of course, a cute child in peril. You know, these are staples of whodunits going all the way back to Agatha Christie and the golden age of crime fiction. And that is catnip to me. I absolutely had so much fun with this film, or at least for the first sort of 2/3 of it, because I do think it goes off the rails in the final act. The decision to film this entirely or almost entirely in one location, I think was very, very smart, because by having the kind of enclosure of a really, really swanky Chicago restaurant where everyone is sort of, you know, dressed like they've walked straight out of the 1920s, and there's a pianist getting drunk on martinis in the corner, you immediately start going, okay, I know exactly what kind of film this is going to be. I absolutely am on board with the vibes. And that basically sustained me for the first sort of hour and 10 minutes of this. It's really good fun seeing kind of first date setup that we have, which actually, you know, is a great date in many ways, but immediately it gets completely sabotaged by these airdrops that are kind of our heroic central character starts receiving on her phone. And you know what? That's a brilliant premise. What an absolutely excellent idea for a film. Imagine if you were in a public space and you started getting threatening airdrops and you couldn't work out who was sending it, but you knew that they had to be within 50 feet of you. That's a great little setup for a film. And I think that they do a really good job of drawing out the suspense of whodunit over the course of the film. There's some really good sequences where you're trying to work out, gosh, how could she possibly get herself out of this situation? What would I do if I was in this situation? And I think it really helps, therefore, to kind of really ground you in those feelings of, oh, what on earth can she do? This is really stressful. Is, you know, the performances are actually really likable. I think that central duo, Meghann Fahy and Brandon Sklenar, they're giving very, very kind of charming, almost like rom-com performances. And I think that really gives the film a lift.
I think definitely they are the cornerstone. They really ground the film. They are brilliant. Because that guy, when this woman has dealt with quite a serious amount of relationship trauma, that's her backstory. She's a single mom. And this guy is the most charming, the most patient, and a very attractive man. And you can instantly understand why she would want to go on a date with this guy.
I have to say, I'd probably have left after she did the fourth or fifth insane, unhinged thing of the evening. But he's the best of us, and so he sticks around. I just thought that it was fun. I love a whodunit. It tickled me in all the right ways. And I thought it was really nicely made. This begins with sort of Bond-esque opening titles with, you know, slow motion exploding bottles of champagne.
Oh, the title sequence is the best part of the film. It's amazing. It's absolutely incredible.
Yeah, it's so good. And the score by Bear McCreary and Smoke and Shadows is, I think, pretty sensational as well. It's got that kind of, ooh, mysterious violins, but then it's also got a little bit of like fun jazziness to it, which is just... it's a delight. That's the word I would use to describe this film. It's constantly really good fun. And, do you know, even though, and no spoilers here, even though in the third act it does, I think, become much more conventional, much more generic, I just thought that it had done enough to deserve me still rooting for it and for the characters in that final act. So, yeah, good fun, nicely made. I enjoyed the process of guessing which of the strange caricatures that were sort of populating the bar were going to crop up again and what they would be doing. I enjoyed trying to think ahead of the filmmakers. And it's got some really nice little sort of cinematic flourishes as well. It's full of crazy Dutch angles. We've got lots of kind of very atmospheric, non-diegetic lighting going on where suddenly, boom, a spotlight is just on these people over there and it's completely, unnaturalistic, but in a great way. So yeah, the kind of the swagger of this film and at times also the boldness of saying, okay, it's a one room, it's basically a locked room murder mystery. Have at it. I was impressed and I had fun.
Do you think the only reason they put that incredible title sequence in the film at all was because without it, it would have only been 80 minutes long? There's a possibility. It's a short and sweet movie. I kind of agree. I think it is fun. I guessed it immediately. I knew exactly who the villain was as soon as they showed up on screen.
That's crazy to me because I wrote off that person. I wrote them off. I thought it wouldn't be them. It's definitely not them. And it was!
And it was. It was the butler, obviously. No, of course not. There's a lot of red herrings, so you can be distracted, and they do an okay way of trying to make everyone seem like they possibly could, because everyone's a little bit unhinged, and we are looking through the main character's eyes, which does have this slightly elevated sense of paranoia, so it could be anyone, and they do establish it. There's a lot of callbacks in establishing of how things work. I don't think it's a very clever movie, but I do think it is something that you could definitely stick on late at night and eat popcorn and just have a good time with. I don't think it's bad. I think it genuinely is a good film, a very good, light film. Even though it deals with heavy topics, it doesn't really deal with them in a very intellectual or interesting way, but it does sort of define a character. There's a lot of incredibly quick emotional shifts, but there's also a lot of quick tonal shifts in this film. Throughout the majority, it is indeed a Christie-esque whodunit. Then at the third act, it just pivots into an action movie, which I enjoyed because by that point you're like, oh, we've had the big reveal, but there's quite a bit left to go of this movie, and then it suddenly pivots. And I really did quite like that extra jolt of energy.
Okay, but did you find it satisfying? Because for me, the very end of the film is a little bit unsatisfying because it does just become a sort of punch 'em up. And I did have a sense that if they had decided to resolve it perhaps in a slightly less conventional way, it maybe would have rung a bit more true. I mean, I'm not looking for realism in these things, but it felt a little bit silly. And to be honest, it felt a little bit unimaginative after the fabulous imagination of the first two-thirds.
See, I think that even though I liked it, I think the film itself is quite underwhelming in general. I think that the premise is really good and they could have pushed it a little further by making it a little more interesting. A lot of the beats were, even the conceit, we've got someone inside the house with your son, you have to do this, you have to do this. I think that the reason that the character has to do all the evil things they have to do isn't very interesting either. I think it's a little played out. And so therefore, when it did do that pivot, I was like, it'll just end now. It'll end when the extortioner is revealed and we can move on and she'll recover and all this sort of stuff. But no, it does have an extra bit of energy. And yeah, it's a bit lame and a bit unrealistic, but the whole movie sort of becomes a little better for me because it decided to push itself in a weird direction, in a slightly wackier direction that sort of does undo some of the again, I keep using this word nuance, but undoes, which I don't actually think this film's nuanced either, but undoes some of the creativity that the previous two thirds had, and then was like, screw it, we'll just do this. And I was like, well, this feels like a good schlocky film. It feels like a film that would possibly have been made between 2000 and 2009. It feels like it's in the wrong era. Hey, I don't feel like that was overly detrimental to it. I was dropped into that action quite nicely, and because I was kind of a little bored, but that's only because I love these types of things. I love whodunits. Being in that world, you can easily figure out what's going on, and it's just a nice ride. I say some negative things in this review, but I'm not negative about it. If you like this genre, you'll like this. but don't go in expecting anything miraculous. So when that action beat does come in, I'm like, oh, I'm a bit... They wouldn't have done this on Diagnosis Murder.
For me, I think that this film and The Amateur very much sit side by side because they are both incredibly aware of what they are, the genre that they're operating in, and they're both fairly content just to sort of play by the rules, therefore, of that kind of world. And neither is The Amateur something that's massively setting out to subvert tropes. But as far as I'm concerned, the reason that those tropes are popular and the reason that they're used is because they're good. And that's what makes genre so fun. So it does what it says on the tin. Once again, it does exactly what it says on the tin. And in this case, it says on the tin, Drop, which is a title that's, I think, entirely confusing and misleading. It doesn't suggest it's a thriller. It doesn't suggest it's maybe tinged with horror. It doesn't tell you that it's to do with receiving airdrops even, because obviously they don't have the access to the word airdrop. So, yeah, confusing marketing, I would say. I think it should have been called Drop Dead, don't you think, Jake?
Yes, Reuben, I agree with you. You write to Jason Blum and you say, hey, Jason Blum, your recent film, big fan. Here's a link to this episode. And yeah, but you should have changed your name, Mr. Successful Movie Producer.
I've had a thought. Maybe the reason it's not called Drop Dead is because they're setting up a sequel called Drop Dead. That, because I think this sort of does hint at a future. I was disappointed. I don't know why, but I convinced myself as the credits were rolling that at the very end, the title of the film was going to come up and we were going to get a zzz of a mobile phone before it cut out to suggest that maybe there was more to come. And we didn't get that. Dear viewer. So maybe there won't be a sequel, but Christopher Landon, he's done sequels before with Happy Death Day. He was meant to be doing Scream, so, he exists in sequel land. And this is doing pretty well at the box office. It cost about 11 million to make. I think it's made about 11 million currently. I'm sure it will make a profit at some point in the next couple of weeks. So yeah, honestly, if there's a sequel on the way and they call it Drop Dead, I am in. I'm seated. Maybe this time they can be on a cruise ship, because I always like it when sequels go on holiday.
Or in space. That's what I want.
ISS murder mystery. That's what we want.
Yeah, there's only 4 people on this current space station. Which one of us has killed the other?
It was Katy Perry. Katy Perry did it.
Katy Perry. That's a topical reference. Dates us. That's what we want to see.